Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with a story about employees who found a way out of a tricky situation they found themselves in because of their boss. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Locked my boss out of his own home. I used to work as a property manager for a semi-large company in a small city. Among the usual duties of a PM, we were also responsible for after-hours maintenance calls. Originally, we were paid for 3 hours of overtime to cover the phone calls we answer and paid an additional $80 for any call-outs we have to attend ourselves. The entire team rotated the phone between us, so we only had the emergency phone for one weekend every 2 months. The phone was an after-hours maintenance line for over 800 properties, so you can imagine how busy it would get, but the extra pay helped the blow of losing your weekend. This was not a problem until our boss wanted to crack down on overtime hours, stating, "I very much doubt you're working 3 hours whilst you have the emergency phone." His new rule was for each staff member to document when and who called, and you would be paid an hour of regular time each call, but under no circumstances are you to attend any issues yourself. This includes unlocking doors for tenants who are locked out of their property. He enforced that the tenant must pay for a locksmith to attend and let themselves in. This angered many of our clients and caused us to be constantly abused over the phone by our tenants as they had to pay $300 for a locksmith. We indeed documented all our calls, which instead of paying each employee $100 for 3 hours, he ended up having to pay us $500 or more each weekend due to the amount of calls we would actually take. But it doesn't stop there. What I should probably mention is that our company can provide accommodations for our more higher staff at a fraction of the cost you would normally pay. The manager in question was in such an accommodation, and lo and behold, he managed to lock himself out of his apartment at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Manager: "Hello, OP, I've locked myself out of my apartment. You need to collect the spare key and come unlock my door." OP: "I'm very sorry, manager, but I cannot do that." Manager: Excuse me? Why not?" OP: "Unfortunately, you've instructed me not to attend to any call-outs under any circumstances. I can, however, send you through the number of our preferred locksmith to come let you in." After a few choice words, the manager hung up and phoned a locksmith. Let's just say after he had to fork out $300 for an after-hours locksmith, he changed our ability to attend call-outs. And our next story. You can cancel at no cost. Last year, my wife and I got married. My parents and sister live halfway across the world, but that didn't stop them from coming over to celebrate. Since neither my wife and I get to spend much time with them, we decided to rent a house for a couple of days in a nearby wine region. You know, hang out, drink some wine, eat some cheese, have some quality family time. It had been 3 years since we last saw them. A month or so before my parents and sister came over, I got an email from the owners of the vacation house saying that they had sold the property, but the new owners were going to continue to rent out the house and they were going to honor the booking, so not to worry. All good. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the new owners saying the booking was still okay, but they were going over their records and said I still owed them $100 for the booking. I replied back with the receipt and booking confirmation that I was all paid up. Turns out the new owners unilaterally decided to increase the price of the accommodation, and I had to pay up. But they were gracious enough to say I could cancel at no cost, but they'd rather we'd keep the booking and pay that little extra. No cost for canceling the booking, you say? Within 5 minutes, I'd found another vacation house in the same region. There's literally dozens of them. I sent a quick email back to please cancel my booking and process the refund. "We'd like you to keep the booking. Can we split the difference?" "No thanks, please cancel the booking." "If you keep the booking, we'll throw in a bottle of wine." "No thanks, please cancel the booking." Good thing the refund came back within days. Their reviews have been less than stellar on TripAdvisor. I wonder why. And our last story. Cheat on me, steal from me, then slander my reputation? Get ready to lose your job, future, and face jail time. So, I was madly in love with my ex-girlfriend. Together for 4 years. She's quite attractive and very affectionate. She thrived on attention, to which I catered to the best of my abilities. I fondly called her Winter, and she had a cheesy name for me as well, which I choose not to divulge. However, I was happy. I earned significantly more than her, apart from the fact that my grandparents left me a hefty amount of money. Although she lived in her own apartment, we live in a very conservative country. Live-in relationships are a big taboo. Most of the stuff in it was mine. She drove my car, used my laptop, and so on. I have a crappy 32-inch LCD TV, while she bought a 60-inch Bravia and defaulted on payments, after which I had to pay for it. This was not an isolated incident either, because she had a lot of things I was paying for. I admit that I was a doormat, in blissful ignorance of all the red flags. So one day I was at her place and I used her laptop to check my email. I couldn't remember her Wi-Fi password. Her Gmail account opened up, and as I went to sign out, a Hangouts notification popped up which said, "God knows I love your body. 7 Same Park, night at my place. Wear the dress my name bought for you so I can tear it apart." There were no other texts on that chat head. She probably deleted it. It was my student, my barely 18-year-old first-year student who we'll call Wuss. I can't describe how I felt at the moment. It was a wild cocktail of emotions. I slammed her laptop and stormed out of her place, but I was foolish enough to not take any evidence. But they were supposed to meet up the next day, and I could catch them red-handed. Next day, I go to the place they were supposed to meet and catch them making out in my car. I knock on the window, ask for my keys, and tell her to never to talk to me again. She was sobbing, apologizing, and so on. I asked Wuss to drop her home, and he just bolted like his tail was on fire. I can never forget the look on their faces, that sudden paleness and shocked expressions. Wuss also forgot his phone in my car. Meanwhile, I'm being bombarded with texts of her apologizing. I then block her. I spent the next 2 days drinking myself to oblivion, and hung over me left a lot of fuzzy details in the post. I tried calling my best friend, but he was away for a business trip, so I didn't disturb him. All I did for 2 whole days was drink, sleep, eat, and repeat. 2 days later, when I came to my senses, I went through my bank statements and then canceled our joint account. Well, she withdrew almost all the money in it, out of which 3/4 was mine. I was still being bombarded with texts and calls, but sometime during my drunken furor, I cracked my phone screen, thus rendering it useless. So I got my backup phone and see a barrage of notifications. As it turns out, she posted on Facebook that I'd been cheating on her, that I was an emotionally manipulative, two-faced D-bag who sleeps with his students. We had a lot of mutual friends, most of whom blocked me. Someone even created a WhatsApp group, and they abused me and said horrible things. She even turned my sister against me. Our father left our mother for a woman half his age. Our mother got depressed and died after a few years. Thus, she was overtly sensitive about infidelity. But X was also horribly manipulative, and she pushed all the right buttons to make my sister hate me. X was hitting all the past wounds. She knew about our father. She said things like, "Chip off the old block," and "He's just like your father," and many more horrible made-up things. She got very depressed because of this, and also several of her friends were on my ex's side. This has probably put a permanent strain on our relationship. Word about my ex's Facebook post spread like wildfire in the college. They pinned a shy, socially awkward girl as being my mistress and shamed that poor girl. To be honest, I've never even noticed her. The revenge. Finally, the part everyone was waiting for. She effectively ruined my reputation and goodwill I'd created in my community and among my peers, put my job in jeopardy. She turned my only family, my sister, against me. I later showed her the apology text my ex sent me. She then apologized to me because I clearly was the victim, not her. Several kind Redditors suggested I contact a lawyer, which I did. So the next day, when I went to work to take a few days off, I see Wuss and his father for me. Somehow I resisted the urge to punch him. He apologized and told me he'd do anything so as to not get him out of college. I asked him if he'd testify in my favor, and he obliged. I did tell him that I won't be able to save him, because that was out of my powers. He told me he would still testify in my favor, and he sent me several screenshots of his chats with X, thus confirming that she was cheating on me and not the other way around. I pressed charges under IPC, Indian Penal Code, Section 499, defamation, 500 and 504, intentional insult with intent to provoke breach of the peace. The day of the hearing was frankly the best day of my life since the breakup. She said a lot of malignant things about me, was yelling a lot to the point that the judge had to scold her. Her lawyer did ask for an out-of-court settlement, but I politely declined because it's not only my life she's inevitably screwed over, it would have been a lot more cheaper if I'd have gotten some dough. But F her. This was quite a scandal, but since I have tenure of 5 years, they can't fire me. I was transferred to another college instead. Same pay, same incentives, but I'll have to travel a bit more than I prefer. As for her, she's knee-deep in crap. She was a librarian, she's a library science major, in the institution I worked for, and was fired as soon as I notified the authorities. The reason being philandering with a student. This has also screwed up her chances of procuring a job in the future. She also faces jail time, as mentioned under Section 500 and 504, which can extend up to imprisonment for over 2 years, a fine, or both. And Indian jails? Sheesh. She can post bail, however. Wuss has been expelled. The money she stole, that would be going to her lawyer. My best friend went to her apartment, got my stuff back for me, which included a futon, a refrigerator, an air conditioner, a laptop, and several expensive electronics and some jewelry. She would keep the TV, though, because it's in her name. She'd probably have to sell it because lawyers ain't cheap, and she has no job and no savings. This is India, and as you might have guessed, people are very, very conservative here. At some point, she'll have to reach out to her parents, who still think she's a virgin. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.